This is Geek News Central. My name is Todd Cochran. The stories that leads the show are Zuckerberg and Tim Cook getting a little testy, GDPR fallout over the Facebook mess, the International Space Station gets a new printer, and of course, there's a new battle for RF spectrum here in the United States. Of course, plus all the news of the day. I want to welcome you to episode 1271 of Geek News Central for Monday, April 2nd. This show is sponsored in part by GoDaddy.com. And listeners just like you, great deals from GoDaddy can be found at geeknewscentral.com/GoDaddy. Support the show today at geeknewscentral.com/insider or simply paypal.me/geek news. You can pick up Ohana gear at cafepress.com/Ohana store. Hey, I want to give a warm welcome to all the new listeners of the show. Thanks for being here. Thanks for checking the show out for the very first time. Of course, if you are a long-term subscriber, of course, I want to thank you again for your ongoing support of the show. And of course, for being a part of the Ohana here. For those of you that are brand new, all you got to do is go over to geeknewscentral.com. Right in the right-hand column of the website, you can get subscribed to the podcast, either via Apple Podcast on Android, via email, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, or just a standard RSS feed. You have no idea what I'm talking about, click on the more subscribe options. On the same page, you're going to find a link to our newsletter. Newsletter contains everything I'm going to talk about during the show today, including all the show notes. So definitely get hooked up with both those. I am subscribing to the show and the newsletter. And of course, coming over the site on a daily basis, see what my writers have put together for you on new content that's over there. Definitely lots of great stuff happening at geeknewscentral.com. And of course, if you got comments on today's show, it's real simple. All you got to do is follow me on Twitter at Geek News. Drop me an email or email me direct. If you follow me on Twitter, you're not sending an email. Follow me on Twitter at Geek News or email me at geeknews@gmail.com. And that's the place to get connected really and provide your feedback on the show. You can join our Slack channel as well by sending an email. Say, hey, I want to join the Slack channel. You can follow me on Facebook or Google+. You can watch the show via the Tech Podcast channel on the Roku or on the Apple TV. Just load the podcast section and search for Geek News Central. Or basically click on the video. That way you'll get me in living color. You can listen on the Amazon device and along with the Google Home device or the Microsoft smart home device. You can tell any of those devices to play the podcast Geek News Central. Of course, you can listen on Stitcher or watch review on Blueberry.com. Partner shows of Geek News Central include No Better Than Average with Jacob and Jeff, The Gadget Professor by Mr. Don Bain, the Pro Gear site written by my GNC team. We've got the Podcast Legend Show and, of course, the New Media Show, which is co-hosted by myself and Mr. Rob Greenlee. This show is sponsored, of course, by our good friends over at GoDaddy.com and listeners just like you. But for our longest running continuous sponsor of a podcast known to man, GoDaddy, we want you to take some time and look at the offers that are available to you in the April offerings, of course, from GoDaddy. Lots of codes there, always available. Great deals as always, ongoing discounts, whether it be 30% off a new product purchase, 99cent.coms, $1 a month economy hosting, $1 a month managed WordPressing. Both of those offers are good for a whole year. Include a free domain, or you can get a 1-month free trial of GoDaddy Website Builder, your choice of personal, business, or business plus plans. And really what this does is this supports the show, helps me keep the lights on here at Geek News Central, keep the bills paid, the family fed. Your support and picking up a GoDaddy product or service is greatly appreciated. Matter of fact, I was over there today looking at some brand new pro services they've got available where you can get a managed WordPress site with 1, 5, 10, 15, 20 site licenses. So you can run up to this example, up to 5 domains on one page. And pricing looked really good for 1 year's worth of service on that. Couldn't really complain, and using my 30% discount code, which I can use for a purchase like that, it really knocked it down a long, long way. So when you're over there looking for products and services, depends on what you need. You may only need a single domain. You may only need a single hosting account, but maybe you've got 4 or 5 hosting accounts all over the place. Maybe consolidating them into a single account that gives you 5 licenses is cheaper than the overall spread of doing onesie twosies here and there. And that's what I was kind of looking at today on pricing and looking at some of the features and some of the stuff that I make available. So definitely check all the stuff out at GoDaddy. Again, you start at geeknewscentral.com/GoDaddy. Before you go to the GoDaddy website itself, grab a code, click on a code. That way you'll lock in your savings. And of course, that 30% discount deal is really underutilized, but it's a good one to use on a variety of products and services at GoDaddy, and it'll save you a lot of money. Of course, those first year $12 accounts with that free domain, you really can't beat that in the long run. But we want to thank GoDaddy for being a longtime sponsor here of the show. We'll see what the March numbers look like. I'm confident the numbers are going to come in good based on everything that I've seen so far on the reporting side that I can see, and I want to thank everyone for their support in March. So just to kind of get you caught up here, Friday night, went and saw Ready Player One. Pretty awesome. Little different storyline than what I expected, adapted for movies, obviously. Saturday was spent wrapping up Honey-Do List, getting things done here, really getting kind of ready for my departure this coming Friday. And then, of course, Sunday was Easter, and then I spent some time working on paperwork and doing some stuff around here in the house as well. So, again, departure this Friday, leaving for Vegas for the new media show. Kirk will be with you for his 3rd and 4th episode. We'll be hosting the show while I'm at NAB. So, as always, definitely appreciate Kirk's hard work here at Geek News Central, and, of course, part of his executive producer job of getting a lot of the show prep ready for me and helping out in a big, big way. As a reminder, if you're available to watch live, you can do that at any time at live.geeknewscentral.com. You can even watch the older shows as well, or the previous episode at least is available there, and a link to the YouTube channel. So I want to welcome everybody. And if you're in Facebook now, just say hi. I'd love to have you say hi. And if you're in the YouTube area, you can definitely drop a note as well in the chat room over there. I'll take a peek from time to time to get up to speed on that. So let me see what I've got here in the stack for you tonight. I'm just going to start off first. That it looks like it's getting a little testy between Mark Zuckerberg and Tim Cook. Mark Zuckerberg said was extremely glib. I guess, what is the definition of glib? Gee, that's not a word people use very often. Glib is an adjective. Fluent and voluble, but insincere and shallow. So he's suggesting Tim Cook of being shallow, and to suggest that because the public did not pay to use Facebook, they did not care about them. So again, Mark Zuckerberg said it was extremely glib to suggest that because the public did not pay to use Facebook, it did not care about them. Last week, Apple's Tim Cook said it was an invasion of privacy to traffic in users' personal lives. And when he was asked what would he do if he were Mr. Zuckerberg, Mr. Cook replied, "I wouldn't be in that situation." Oh, man. I wonder if they're going to be sharing coffee anytime soon. Oh, wow. Wow. But, he asked about Cook's comments, and he did acknowledge that Facebook was still not transparent enough about the choices it had taken, and floated the idea of an independent panel being able to override some of its decisions. And, we talked about on this last show that this goes all the way back to the first, them giving data to former President Barack Obama's presidential campaign at the time, his first presidential campaign, and of course, then the second campaign, and then, so yeah, it's a pretty off, pretty funny, And Cook said that Apple is better off for charging customers and not selling them to advertisers. So this is very interesting here. Cook told RE Code's Carrie Swisher last week that privacy to us is a human right and a civil liberty, and ultimately because Facebook is a free service, that users become the products that are then sold to advertisers, something he thinks Apple is better off for not doing. Now, there was a site today that Kirk didn't pick up, and maybe he didn't pick it up because he thought that the show, we wouldn't talk about it, but there's a website called Grindr, and it is a dating site for men, dating men, and it was sharing those users' HIV status with other firms, with 2 other companies. And they actually defended themselves today, saying that sharing users' personal info, including HIV status with third parties when appropriate, they basically said they defended sharing this data with third parties. I'm like, what? Now, I'm assuming that those profile information is important on that site. Okay? And HIV is not in any way a laughing matter. And it's folks that have been devastated with this are not always public about their status per se. They understand the risk involved with the disease and its transmissivity. Is that the right word to say? But for a website to have that information and then share it with a third party do we hear an outcry today about that data being shared by that website? This is Tim Cook's comments about privacy being a human right is not too far from the truth at this point. Now, we all know, we have a reality check here on this show that we know that we are the product when we're on Facebook. All right? We know that the data we put out there is being publicly mined and everything else. We're all pretty straight on this up to this point, right? But the tide may have turned here a little bit, folks. And public opinion is moving back to be more conservative, moving back to the right about the amount of data that they feel willing for companies to share. And this example with the Grindr website sharing that very private information to third parties, in my opinion, is unconscionable in this day and age. And I don't know what the LGBTQ community is going to have to say about Grindr. I really don't. We'll see what the fallout of this is. But for them to share that information, to me, is like, wow. So okay. So let's think about, would there be outcry if there was a sharing of information like this on a heterosexual dating site? would there be an outcry if Tinder was sharing all kinds of personal information about the people that use the site to third parties? Do we even know if they are or not? And I'm not saying they are, but what would be the outcry be there? What about, other dating sites, Match.com and so forth? And again, I'm just pulling these names out of air. I'm not trying to target anyone, but what are they sharing with third parties about the people using the website? So not only are we putting information about what we think and feel on Facebook, we're not only doing Google searches about interest or topics that we're searching for. It could be medical, could be all kinds of things that people are looking at. Not only are people that are going to adult websites having information shared, there's literally, let's be frank, there's no privacy left. And maybe we've killed a dead horse here and talked about this topic too much. But there are repercussions to all this, because the Cambridge Analytica stuff, they're a company that is in the EU. Okay? And the GDPR stuff is coming fast and furious. May 25th is when the GDPR, all the rules go into place. And as some of even Geek News Central's writers have, Andrew has indicated to me, he's like, listen, we've been living at a higher level of privacy at least in the UK for a long time. And of course, the EU stuff makes it even more. And so what does this have to do with the GDPR? It strengthens the case for GDPR, and based upon the information that I see. Now, let me just give you two points of view here, and I've already shared you one on the implementation cost as a company, and we've already talked at length about that. So we know that the implementation cost is going to be high for companies to implement. Number two, I think most people would be happy to have GDPR type of privacy rules in place in the United States. I think most now would say that would be a great thing. And if there is an adoption of GDPR style rules and regulations that become law in the United States, a lot of these internet companies will not survive, because they make so much money tying you and I to products and services and marketing that we can be sold to. We're very valuable assets to them. Why is Twitter and why is Facebook and why are all these companies valued so high? Because they've got millions and billions of users that use a service that are all intertwined to, that are marketed to, and there is a dollar amount that you and I are worth to every one of these companies. Every time we go up and hit like, every time we post a comment, every time we put a picture, every time we put a video, like we're live today on Facebook, when we put this information up, we are more valuable to Facebook as a user, and they can sell against, strengthen their value of their company. And if GDPR type rules came into effect in the United States, users would have to consent willingly and with full knowledge of how their information will be used and for what purposes. They have to say, yes, I give you permission. You don't have to say, no, you don't have permission. You have to, GDPR rules say, I give you the right to collect on me, and I can change my mind at any minute. And the GDPR rules are such that it prohibits companies from using long, illegible terms and conditions full of, 52 pages of user agreements and instead requires an intelligible and easily accessible form that states the reason for data collection and makes it as easy to withdraw consent as to give it. The whole of Facebook has not complained about the data that was given to three total they went hard right on Trump and his campaign, but the two other campaigns, you didn't hear too much about that. So let's be frank, we've said it many, many times on this show that these companies know more about us than our spouses, wives, girlfriends, significant others, and so forth. But to think that in this day and age, and that a LGBTQ site like Grindr would share the HIV status with third-party companies of their users, to me, is like even that much further. That's almost like HIPAA data, but they haven't given it to a medical website, so they're not underneath the same rules. But I think we're going to see a sea change here. At the same time, Facebook is promising to delete unpublished videos. If you publish a video and you unpublish it, up to this point, they were keeping videos recorded but never published. And they're going to be deleting them. They were found. They're going to delete those. And so, Facebook with over 2 billion monthly users has got a rough road ahead of them. They're having a very rough year so far based upon everything else. There's a good article in Vox.com, but in the context of everything, they may become their own worst enemy. So anyway, enough on that. But I would be curious if we have any LGBTQ listeners in this audience. I know we do. If you'd be willing to weigh in on what your thoughts are on Grindr sharing HIV status with third parties outside of Grindr. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on that. And I'm not saying that you use the site, okay? But if you have friends that do, or if you were, how would you react? And, for those of us that are on other sites, if you're on Match or if you're on Tinder or one of these other sites, what would you feel about those sites sharing your personal privacy profile information as well? And I don't know do they ask those types of sexual health questions on heterosexual sites? I don't know if they do or don't. Someone that uses one, please fill me in. Do they ask those health questions? I'm really, really curious. I really am. But anyway, crazy amount of data being shared about us by multiple companies. And I think we've only just chipped the iceberg just a little bit. I don't think we're at a point where I think there's more information to come. And now reporters are hot on the scene. They're looking for data. And I had a meeting this morning for about 20 minutes. I was in my car taking my kid to school. I'm on the phone with Angelo, my CIO, and he says, here's the 5 things we got left to do before May 25th. And we're going to be ready. We're going to be done. But, I had a partner announcement this morning, and there was information in the partner agreement that I basically said, no, I cannot share with you our email and usernames. That data can't cross streams. We don't allow that in our terms of service. And not only that, in another month and a half, it's going to be even more restricted on information that we can share. So you're going to have to collect that information on your site on your own when the sign-up process happens. I'm not allowed to just give you that data because we are very sensitive to our users' information. So we're talking about that a little bit. So anyway, it's it's going to be fun to watch this here and see where it goes. I want to hear, is there going to be outrage on what Grindr did and sharing that, that HIV status with other companies? To me, it's sick. It's sick to think that they think that is okay. I don't understand that. That's like, it's incomprehensible to me that they would share that information, in my opinion. It really, really is. So anyway, I'll try to share one of the links on that. And it's I know this show's family safe. We try to, this is important stuff we need to talk about. Anyway, right up against the line here tonight for sure. But, I think our kids all need to think about the information they're putting online and sharing and doing based upon this information that's, being shared across, company lines here. Or on to a little science news here. The International Space Station will replace a 17-year-old printer this week. The HP Envy ISS is launching with SpaceX CR-14 mission, CRS-14. And hard to believe that the printer at the International Space Station has lasted for 17 years. Now check this out. Okay, so all right, you're in space. You got to print out checklist, task list, all that kind of stuff. How much paper do you think they use? I was blown away. They use a couple of reams of paper a month. 2 reams of paper per month they go through on the International Space Station. Printing out everything from mission critical information, personal letters, photographs. Are you serious? That's some expensive paper. Yeah, I hope they're printing double-sided. In order to design a printer that would work in zero gravity, including paper management and waste ink management, the plastic on the printer had to be flame retardant. They call that plenum. And in aircraft terms, plenum, the wiring in the aircraft is plenum. And basically, if you take house wire and you put a match on it, it will smoke black and nasty. If you take aircraft wire and you put a match direct flame on it, it will just char. It will not smoke. So the plastic on the printer had to be flame retardant and had to be able to print in multiple orientations. Of course, what's up in space, who knows? But thanks to 3D printing, HP was able to develop the MV ISS based on the OfficeJet 5740, which fulfilled all the zero-G requirements. And they've got a picture of it here online. And if you want to see what this printer looks like, this is what the 17-year printer is being replaced with. Nothing fancy here. So anyway, I guess that's the printer that's going to the International Space Station. So would have thought, right? You thought they would have been like paperless up there. Does it make sense? Okay, next thing up, let's talk about a band, R Spectrum. R Spectrum is in huge demand, but it appears a Google-led plan to overhaul how valuable airwaves are used for calls and texts is gaining momentum across the wireless industry, giving the company a chance to play ball in networks of the future. The Citizens Broadband Radio Service, CBRS, is a fat slice of the U.S. airwaves. It's a whopping 150 megahertz. It's big, So if you look at the radio, radio doesn't use. It uses from 89 to 106, I think, or 107. That's the megahertz range that radio uses, but this is 150 megahertz that's been used up to this point by the Navy in some sort of communication system that they have. And I'm not at all actually been familiar with this. It's instead of just zipping messages between aircraft carriers and fighter jets, the spectrum will be shared by the Navy, wireless carriers like Verizon, cable companies, including Comcast, and even hospital refineries and sports stadiums. So Google has been trying to work out the priority scheme. So, for example, when a carrier comes into San Diego and is using the spectrum, the system has to automatically kick everyone else down into lower priority to give the Navy pry. But if you're in Kansas, you don't have to worry about a Navy ship pulling into port, right? If it did, there's some weird stuff going on, right? So they've got this is being rolled out, the CBRS, these channels, and Google's trying to lead the way in basically getting in and playing ball. And the wireless carriers do not like it in the least. What they're going to do is they're lean charging, making the service work seamlessly across multiple layers. They built databases and sensor systems that switch users to different CBRS channels to avoid interference when the Navy sails into town, and this could upend the wireless business. Carriers spent more than $50 billion in recent years buying exclusive spectrum rights, then charging users for cell service. So what's happening here is if instead of buying and hoarding the spectrum, if it's shared in new ways, aka shared, it'd become an abundant resource, making mobile internet connectivity more available and potentially cheaper. And the U.S. carriers do not like this. They like control. But the U.S. wireless industry is so desperate for new spectrum, it's willing to try the idea of sharing, even work with Google, which has been viewed skeptically by the industry. Unlimited wireless plans have caused data usage to soar. Throw in the pressure to build new 5G networks, and companies like Verizon, AT&T can't afford to ignore CBRS. Even it disrupts decades of spectrum orthodoxy. So this is a very interesting read. It talks about the role specifically Milo Medin at Google did to try to navigate these windows to have this 150 megahertz spectrum be shared in layers and basically not have it go to auction as other spectrum offerings have in the past. So this should be fun to watch over the next year. And if it works out, it could be at 260, because they figure this spectrum is worth $260 billion, a win for consumers. So pretty awesome stuff. All right, on the security side, switching gears again here, hackers take $5 million payment cards from Saks, Lord, and Taylor stores. So another retail breach here. Apparently they got into their point of sale system, and basically they were able to sell over 5 million payment cards stolen from databases of 83 Saks, including off Fifth and the entire network of Lord and Taylor. The crooks are only selling 125,000 cards on the dark web as this writing, but the rest are expected to reach the black market in the months ahead. So it appears then it's just payment cards of some sort. So is it actually a user breach? I don't think so. Well, maybe. Yeah, it does. It also includes customers. Customers' information was hacked as well. So we'll see what happens here. If you're a Saks and Lord and Taylor store customer with one of their charge cards, you're probably going to get a note from them. Yeah, and they're selling credit and debit card information online. The number of use, you're going to love this. And we've been looking heavily, or I have been looking heavily at radio space in regards to podcasting over the past a month, as we're getting ready to go to NAB and talk to radio customers and encourage them to launch their podcast networks and look at the space a little differently. But over-the-top only U.S. households have nearly tripled since 2013. So, in other words, those of you out there, they're cutting the cord here. There are 14.1 million over-the-top households, with just 11% of all U.S. TV households. And but still, it's a significant number here. A report found that over-the-top services are often used along traditional pay TV subscriptions, not in place of them. So some folks have both. So 70% of over-the-top households also have a cable, satellite, or telco TV subscription. But adoption of over-the-TV services growing, and they forecast by 2021, the over-the-top households will grow 8.2 to 17.9 million homes, while multi-channel households will drop another 2 or 3%. But they're saying that this is starting to see a shift in the number of dollars being spent on TV ad spending. It's starting to, it's not going up anymore. It's starting to kind of level off, when they expect it may start to shrink. So the Olympics was a big failure for NBC, with ad spending way down. But like $69 billion TV ad spending, as compared to Roku ad revenues, which include both video and display, will surpass $293 million. So if you think about that, it's still not even really that much money as compared to the rest of the space. But things are changing. Same with radio. All right, take a shot of H2O here.
You've got to get in there.
Whoa. Don't need to hear the ad. This is another one of these sites that auto-launch the video as soon as you jump on. As a disclaimer here, you guys know I own Intel stock. Have for years. Apple plans to use its own chips in Macs from 2020, replacing Intel. Intel stock was down 8%. Thanks, Apple. But Apple doesn't like being beholden to anyone. So they're planning to use their own chips, beginning as early as 2020. The initiative, codenamed Kalamata, is still in early development stages, but comes as part of a larger strategy to make all of Apple devices, including Macs, iPhones, and iPads, work more similarly and seamlessly together, said the people who asked not to be identified, discussing private information. The project, which executives approved, will result in a multi-step transition. The shift would be a blow to Intel, whose partnership to help revive Apple Mac success and link the chipmaker to one of the leading brands electronics. Apple provides Intel with about 5% of its annual revenue. Oh, the stock went further. It went 9.2% down today. So, hey, might be a bargain time to buy Intel. Hint, hint. They could delay the switch, but, Apple usually doesn't do that. So we'll see what happens. Of course, they have to get their chip processing up, and, manufacturing chips is not necessarily easy either. But if anyone has the war chest to do it, Apple does. There's a article over on Lifehacker talking how to watch YouTube videos without ads for free with an Android app. If you're tired of suffering through annoying YouTube ads, remember, creators have to eat too. The company's YouTube Rev subscription is a solid option. Unfortunately, it's only available in a small handful of countries. If you don't access the service or you don't feel like paying $10 a month, there's another ad-free YouTube player for Android you can get. It's called NewPipe. It's available. And so it lets you watch YouTube videos with opting into Google Play service. That means Google can't track what you're watching. And if you're worried about protecting your online privacy, app also copies a couple of YouTube Red's best feature, like ad-free streaming and the option to download video for offline viewing. So anyway, NewPipe is one out there. Again, I encourage you to support creators and watch part of their ads before skipping them. NASA looks into robot bees for Mars exploration. The rocky landscape on Mars is pretty hard on the rovers, especially the drivetrain. So NASA researchers are considering ways to explore the red planet by taking flight there instead. The space agency is looking at delivering a swarm of robotic bees called Mars bees. Each Mars bees would be about the size of a bumblebee, but with a larger wings and the size, basically about the size of a cicada. The bees would that's a lot bigger than a bumblebee. The bees would launch from a mobile base that acts as a communication hub and recharging station. How far could they go here? Kang's team plans to work with the Japanese group that built and tested a robot designed specifically to operate on Mars, and they're going to do some test studies here on this. And they're spending some money to do it. Why don't just use regular drones? A little more stable than, I guess you can put a lot of these on board. I don't know. It's a little weird. The preliminary numerical results that a bumblebee with cicada wings can operate sufficient lift to hover in the Martian atmosphere. Well, what about survive when it's windy? Or get back from downrange when it's in a headwind? That is the question. Of course, you guys all know about Spotify, you know about Pandora, Apple Music. How many of you have messed around with Amazon Music Unlimited? Well, if you haven't, Amazon Music Unlimited individual plans cost $10. A family plan costs $15 for up to 6 household members. And of course, the Echo plan is $4 a month if you have an Amazon Echo device, but comes with one restriction: you can only stream music using that Amazon Echo device. And if you're an eligible Prime student, you get the individual plan at a huge discount, only pay $5 per month. The benefits of Prime student. I'll have to ask my son if he's using my Prime account. He should use his own. But Amazon Music Unlimited and Amazon Prime are not the same. Prime Music is a service that includes with Prime, with the main difference being the number of songs available. Prime Music only allows streaming around 2 million songs, while Music Unlimited grants access to, tens of millions of songs. Oh, that's interesting. So I learned something today. So if you want information on Amazon Music Unlimited, I have a link up in the show notes. All right, the 2018 iPad with Apple Pencil may replace your iPad Pro. You know, this new iPad that they announced with the educational market, with the discounts, has generated a lot of commercial interest. And it's obviously superior to the popular iPad 2. But the question is, will it replace your iPad Pro? Probably not completely, but everyone's saying the specs on this is looking pretty good overall. And Apple Insider telling you about an iPad and what it can do for you is wasting time, because the odds are pretty good if you're reading this review on one. Instead, let's delve into what sets a new iPad apart. It's got a non-laminated screen. It has Apple Pencil support. Its dimensions are 240 millimeter tall, 169 millimeters wide, thickness is 7.5, and weighs 469 grams, run on an A7 processor from 2013, so it's a little older processor, obviously. And it does come with a protective case. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. Link will be up in the show notes if you want to review this new iPad. I love both of my iPad Pros, I'll be honest with you. I've got the bigger one and the smaller. The big one will be in heavy use next week at NAB. I won't be found without it. Charter, they lost one. Charter fails to prove that its employees purposely caused cable outages. They had a little lawsuit going with their union. They accused their union workers of sabotaging the network during an ongoing strike. They had sued IBEW Local Union Number 3 in a New York State court in October, alleging that union leadership orchestrated vandalism of coaxial and fiber cables that had caused outages for tens of thousands of subscribers. Lawsuit said vandalism hit Charter cables in New York City more than 125 times during the strike, which began in March 2017. And it's entering its second year. The New York Court of Appeals held that the suit against unions, which are unincorporated association breaches of agreements or for tortious wrongs, are limited to cases where the individual liability of every single member can be alleged and proven. So they dismissed it. The Charter's got to do better than that to get this thing to stick, for sure. Apparently, Firefox global user shares has slipped to the lowest level it's seen in many, many years. For March, Firefox user share, an estimate of the portion of the world's PC owners who ran the browser, was 10.3%, the lowest since near-death experience in summer 2016 when it plunged below 8. So it's basically dropped since they've overhauled it. And I'll be honest with you, since they overhauled it, I'm now primarily using Chrome. I used to use Firefox almost exclusively for getting this show prep and handling all the tabs and everything I had to have open. So their quantum iteration of this definitely has not done well. Back to the drawing boards. Spotify is doing an interesting IPO. It's a non-traditional IPO. So they basically are allowing their employees to they get to sell their stock out of the block. And experts have predicted it could fetch a valuation of more than $25 billion, which would roughly make it equal to the Snapchat IPO in March, which valued that company at $17 a share. According to Manhattan Venture Partners, the New York bank, Spotify shares had been trading on a gray market up to $150 per share, given the unofficial $26.5 billion evaluation. And trading is expected to be very volatile the first couple of days because of the impact of the privacy scandal on tech firms. But it's 140 million active users, more than 60 million are paid users, helps them a lot. But this is a non-traditional IPO, and they won't really know how much they're worth until they start releasing shares and allowing their employees to sell the shares on the open market from day one without any waiting period. So we'll see what develops here. I have a teenager in the house again, a young teenager, and his voice just got an octave or two a little bit higher than what is allowed in talking with his mother. So I've got my ear cocked here. Maybe have to go have an attitude adjustment. It went quiet pretty quick. I think he knows me enough that's tempting fate. Dad, you know how it is. They get to a certain level, right? And they get to that next octave, and you kind of, it's like, usually if the show wasn't going on, I would have already stood up and walked outside the room and seen what was going on. I was close there. I almost had to get up. All right. John McAfee, yes, the wild man, John McAfee, has revealed he charges $105,000 per promotional cryptocurrency tweet. I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. This guy's been a little bit on the edgy side. There's been some folks that have thought he's may have been doing a pump and dump type of operation going on with tweeting about cryptocurrency. But he says that he gets $105,000 for each tweet he sends promoting digital coins or initial coin offerings. And last week he tweeted his team had written up a guide on how his promotional tweets worked and posted it to his McAfee crypto team, an organization McAfee and his team put together to promote initial coin offerings. And a lot of that going on these days. A lot of people trying to ride the ICO train and get rich on, in my opinion, many unsuspecting investors. President Trump will take his trade war to China's tech sector this week. Of course, we'll see what happens here. The administration is planning to unveil a list of Chinese imports targeted for U.S. tariffs, and the list of $50 billion to $60 billion worth of annual imports expected target largely high-tech products, and it may be more than 2 months before tariffs take effect. A U.S. Trade Representative investigation authorized the tariff accuses China of systematically seeking to misappropriate U.S. intellectual property through joint venture requirements, unfair technology licensing rules, purchase of U.S. technology firms with state funding, and outright theft. Well, they do steal a lot of tech, a lot. It's disgusting how much they steal. And but the U.S. Trade Representative Office has to unveil this, and by this coming Friday, and we'll see what happens here with this. But we've already seen some escalation in tariffs back and forth a little bit. But one thing I've also noticed is that some countries have started to drop off some of these lists. Word on the street is deals are being made. And so maybe we'll see. We'll see how this all ends up. Of course, the president kept his assault on on Amazon going via Twitter, and he was criticizing its U.S. Postal Service contract. Now, for the first time ever, Sunday, I had a package that was delivered by U.S. Postal Service. I couldn't believe it. I have never had the U.S. Post Office come to my house on a Sunday, on Easter Sunday, to deliver a package. And I was astounded. And I don't remember ordering priority on anything, but it showed up, and I thought, how much did that cost for that lady? Again, this is the U.S. Postal Service. I know she had to be getting double pay, probably quite happy to work at double pay, probably minimum number of hours too, but I didn't need that package Sunday. I really didn't. I didn't order it to have it delivered on Sunday. So I'm still confused, to be honest with it, but there's been some back and forth on this too, saying this is actually boon to USPS. I don't know what the story is, but Amazon stock took a little bit of a hit. When I saw this article, I had to check the date on the article. No, April's Fool Day was just, yesterday. And when I saw this article on a stomach wearable, I said, this can't be real. And this was over in Engadget, but again, it was posted today. And when I saw this, I be honest with you, I'm just like, no way this is real. But researchers have created a wearable monitor that can track your stomach's electroactivity for signs of digestion issues. It's called a electrogastrography EGG. It's like an EGG for the GI tract. Man, strap one of these things to me. They can learn something. And it was used briefly in the 90s, but abandoned due to the lack of usefulness as a diagnostic tool. UC San Diego scientists are trying to resuscitate it with improved hardware and most importantly, algorithms, I probably just pronounced that wrong, that help filter out noise. The results so far are promising, and if perfected, could help doctors diagnose gastrointestinal problems without the need for invasive probes or even a hospital visit. So instead of getting a probe down your throat or going the other way, doctors might be able to figure out what's going on with our guts when they're acting funny. And believe me, having traveled all the world with the Navy, eating all kinds of weird food in weird countries, I've had my fair share of gastronomical, how should we say it, interesting times. Walmart opens first small high-tech supermarket in China. And I guess you can pay with your phone when you're getting ready to leave the retailer. And not a lot of information about what they're actually selling, but it's a Walmart supercenter, high-tech supermarket in China. And you guys all know I'm not a big fan of Walmart. I hold them responsible for destroying Middle America. And Walmart has run smaller Walmart Express stores in the United States with 12,000 to 15,000 square feet, compared with about 105,000 square feet for a typical supermarket. Walmart did not specify the size of the China store in the southern city of Shenzhen. The company did not immediately respond to requests for comment, but the outlet will stock more than 8,000 items ranging from stir-fried clams to fresh fruit. 90% will be available online. It says same items can be delivered within a 2-kilometer radius as quickly as 29 minutes. Walmart owns a stake in JD.com, so they can pay for this by their smartphone and so forth. So, yes, Walmart comes to China, except under Chinese rules. The Chrome web store is no longer going to allow crypto mining extensions, so you don't have to worry about your browser getting hijacked by a crypto miner. Google is also equipping more rural school buses with Wi-Fi and Chromebooks. They've announced today expanding its Rolling Study Halls initiative to cover 16 additional school districts, giving thousands of students access to Wi-Fi and Chromebooks on their buses. They piloted programs in North and South Carolina last year. Where's this one going to go? So they're going to do this in Alabama, Colorado, Georgia, Kansas, Minnesota, New Mexico, Oregon, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia. And bada bing, bada boom here. It's awarded more than $1.9 million to local schools and nonprofits since 2009. That's not much money. What else? So we'll see. It's basically said that they're awarding this to bus routes that are longer than normal. The average bus route is 1.5 hours in the morning and the afternoon. The bus I rode on was about 40 minutes with all the stops when I was a kid. But Wi-Fi on the bus, cool, as long as you can keep them from playing Ingress or something like that instead. Pizza Hut smart shoes can turn you into a fashionable couch potato. And I'm not even going to give this article the worthiness of an additional read, but it will be in the show notes because it is entertaining. New York has approved a surcharge for Uber and Lyft rides in Manhattan. That should not come as a surprise. Lawmakers passed a ride-hailing increase, the new fee. Uber and Lyft will face a $2.75 charge for each ride and get a $2.50 increase on group rides. Uber Pool will be charged 0.75 cents per customer. And basically, it's already catching flack from customers and from taxi drivers who become far outnumbered by ride-sharing cars in the last several years. Of the 103,000 vehicles for hire in New York City, 65,000 are driven by Uber contractors alone. The taxis remain capped at 13,600. I'm telling you, get an Uber in Manhattan is fantastic. 2 minutes. It will hurt our business. People won't want to pay more money, and that's what's going to happen. Taxi driver told New York One there's 130,000 Ubers. Okay, they create congestion, get rid of them. Oh, so, all right, they like it or they don't like it. What's the deal here? It's not going to stop people from riding Lyft and Uber in Manhattan. And here's the reason. It's convenient. It's fast. It's faster than a cab. I can get in an Uber. I come out of a skyscraper. I'm in the elevator. I request my Uber. And if I'm not halfway down the elevator and within 15 seconds of the door, the Uber will be there before I get out the front of the building in Manhattan. It's that awesome. Otherwise, I'd be standing on the curb, waving my hand, trying to get a yellow taxi to stop. And when they did stop, they stink. And the driver's attitudes stink. It ain't going to change nothing. Not in Manhattan. Not for a business guy like me. I go into that city. Everyday riders, I don't think it's going to change nothing. Except for, more revenue for the city. Moving on here, article is healthcare groups to use blockchain to improve provider data. I still don't understand this whole blockchain thing. On Monday, 5 healthcare organizations, Humana, Multiplan, Quest Diagnostics, Optum, and United Healthcare, said they're following suit, launching a pilot program to see if blockchain technology can keep health plan providers' directories up to date. Typically, physicians' health system keep separate copies of healthcare provider data, such as doctor's name, address, and specialty, as well as which insurance they accept. Reconciling differences in their data can be expensive. The commercial healthcare industry spent $2.1 billion a year collecting and maintaining provider data, according to an estimate from the Council of Affording Quality Healthcare, a nonprofit. Blockchain could help bring down the administrative costs by ensuring data is complete and accurate across all parties, the healthcare organization says. Well, we will see. We will see. Amputees are turning into apps for fitness and finesse. Apps are changing the way amputees do everything from staying fit to operating their prosthetic limbs. And there's a gentleman that runs a website called Amputee Guy, and he talks about his experience using a variety of different apps and for his fitness and stuff that works for him. So if you have a family member that's an amputee, or maybe you are as well, you may want to check this out. There's also an app called Fitness for Amputees. It's a very popular one out there, designed for folks that have below the waist or have amputation below the waist. Is that the right way to say that? And it's amazing. Nearly 2 million people in the United States have lost a limb. A lot of military men and women. So link will be up in the show notes on that. Some people were unhappy that Google snubbed Easter with no doodle for 18 years in a row. So I think they pretty much stated they're not going to do that. NASA's next mission to Mars will go deep beneath the red planet's surface. Well, at least as much as 16 inches deep. The Mars InSight lander, planned for launch on May 5th, will be the first spacecraft dedicated to studying the deep interior of the red planet. They're going to have a seismic investigation. They're going to hammer a heat probe up to 16 feet. Oh, that's different than 16 inches. Wow. 16 feet? That's pretty aggressive. What if they run into a rock? They're going to use seismic detectors, and then they're also going to have a test to look at the shift in radio signals between Earth and Mars to figure out the wobble of Mars. So that's pretty interesting. They can do that by having a time signal back to the Earth. They can look at that change in pitch. So we'll see what happens there. They got to get it there first. T-Mobile's Galaxy Note 8 now receiving Android 8.0 and Oreo. So if you have a Note 8 with T-Mobile, just be aware that that's coming. By the way, my wife got the Apple 8 Plus on Sunday. She basically, we had about an hour before the Easter service, and she said, we go to the Apple store, and she's never asked for a brand new phone. And I've been encouraging her to get one because the phone she's got has got some miles on it. And she asked, and what do you do? You don't say no, right? And we went and picked her up one. She got a full 256 megabyte one. She looked at the 10, and I was kind of holding my breath there, and she didn't pick that, and went with the 8 Plus. Fingerprint, what she wanted. Okay, last couple of articles here. CBS News has got an article about how you're tracked online, what you can do about it, and it's got some good information. I'll let you dig into that. Also, not surprising, UK households face the same issue we do here in the United States. More than half of the UK households face broadband problems. 1 in 5 British households have experienced slow broadband speeds in the last year. It polled more than 1,900 customers across 12 providers, more than half of whom reported having problems with their broadband service or price. The survey looked at the biggest providers, including BT, Sky, TalkTalk, Virgin Media, Zen. Together, they service about 90% of UK broadband customers. And of course, rural residents are left in the bind just like they are here in the United States. It said TalkTalk customers were likely experience very slow speeds, with 31% of them reporting problems over the last 12 months that were followed by BT. 23% had issues. Sky came next with 22. For those of you in the UK, this might be a good article for you to read if you're thinking about changing providers. Also, NHK in Japan is ready to shoot slow motion 8K video. The Japanese broadcaster is also testing 8K VR displays. So 8K, my God, you'll see not only will you see someone's face, you'll see the most intimate, the pores on their face. Ridiculous. 8K. There's hardly any 8K sets around, and they're ready to do slow-mo in 8K. What is their eyeballs capable of seeing? Tableau launches more affordable over-the-air DVR with cloud service. I'm not familiar with Tableau at all, but Nuvo's over-the-air Tableau DVRs potentially big bargains if you want the convenience of recording shows without pricey cable package, but upfront costs, dictated in part by the built-in storage, can make them daunting. The company has a simple solution. Release a DVR, lets you pick your own drive. Its newly launched Tableau Dual Lite includes the same tuner recording device as before, but ditches the 64 gigs of built-in storage in favor of a lower price, 140 down from 220. Let you get only the USB drive you want. Okay, I'm not familiar with this device, the Tableau. I need to go look it up. Anybody own one? All right, research mission in progress. Alibaba is acquiring Chinese food delivery firm Ele.me at a cost of $9.5 billion. So Alibaba in that market now. Hey, the Chinese space station burned up over the South Pacific. The Xingyang-1 has met its fiery end. The out-of-control space station plummeted through Earth's atmosphere roughly at 7:15 Eastern on Sunday, and most of it was destroyed during reentry. How parts crash-landed somewhere over the South Pacific Ocean. Speaking to Reuters, astrophysicist Brad Tucker's estimated that 10% or 700 to 800 kilograms may have made it to Earth's surface. Most likely the debris is in the ocean, and even if people stumbled over it, it would just look like rubbish and be spread over a huge area. So didn't come down over land. That's a good thing. With this much water on this planet, not surprising. Federal investigators are very unhappy that Tesla revealed crash details that killed a driver that's hands were off the wheel in a highway accident on March 23rd. And Tesla has determined that irregularities in the coning in the road, something to that effect, caused the issue. But the NTSB is not happy that they have shared this before they've concluded their investigation. If you've got an iPhone, there's a good article on how to capture, share, and edit live videos, live photos on the iPhone. Some discussion about that, some tools you can use. Also, last up tonight, how to install annoying Mac OS apps. I've really never looked. I guess chess is an app that's loaded. I'm not necessarily I know how to play chess, but it's not something I want to do. But apparently, they think you should on the Mac. But there is a way to remove some of this stuff. I guess if you're tied on hard drive space, that's something people do. And also a mobile topic, airplane mode on Android, tips, tricks, and hacks you need to know. Some things you can look at and do that you may not be aware of. So anyway, that's going to wrap me up for today for all the content. Kind of rushed it here on Anna. I wanted to get through before we ran out of time. And let's see here. Did I have any bada bing, bada boom comments that came in? Let me get that page loaded. No, nothing new on the comment front. But I did get a few more GDPR comments that came in that were not anonymous, but asked me not shared on the show. So I caught your all attention on that one for sure. That's had some high numbers of responses. But okay, so here's the deal. Be back with you on Thursday. Of course, a Friday show release. One more episode before I'm out for NEB. Kirk will be in I'll be in for the next one. Kirk will be in for the next two, and then I'm back with you. And if it turns out my schedule gets nuts while I'm on travel, if I run into meeting conflicts, I'll work with Kirk on that down the road. But as far as I know, I'm on this trip to the East Coast. I will be with you. A variety of different hotel rooms over a 3-week time span. Some of the locations I can talk about, some I can't. So lots of mystery going on, lots of meetings, lots of discussions. So I'll keep you guys advised as much as I possibly can. That's the norm around here at this point. All right, geeknews@gmail.com, geeknews@gmail.com. Definitely follow the show. Go over to geeknewscentral.com. Stay subscribed. Thank you for supporting our sponsor. And for all our insiders, for everyone that's contributing $2, $5, $10, $15, $25 a month, thank you for your ongoing support of the show and contributions to the podcast. I think we've picked up a couple of people in recent weeks have come on as insiders. geeknewscentral.com/insider. Every penny counts. And I'm getting some additional feedback socially. You guys think I'm doing a good job on the show recently. So I guess after 1,271 episodes, that's still good, positive feedback. If I'm not, blast me in the face. I'm a big boy. But everyone, thanks for being here. Those of you who've been live watching the show, thanks so much for following along. It's been my pleasure to bring you the podcast tonight. We'll see you back here next week. Everyone take care. Our next show on Thursday live, Friday release. Everyone take care. Bye-bye. Aloha.